Okay, Bert, before we get started, we have 3 quick questions, just quick hits, quick answers. First one, ready?
Ready.
All right. If you're thinking about building in the next year, do what first?
Look at your finances and see if it's reality. See if you can get there.
I like it.
And the second question, what is one financial habit that everyone should start today?
You just got to spend less than you make. It's just that simple, you know. Our toys just keep getting bigger.
Right. Just spend less than you make. That sounds so easy. Last one. Biggest green flag versus red flag when preparing financially.
Well, red flag is how many payments you got hanging out there, how many times you traded cars, how many credit cards. Green flag is you got some money in the bank and you've been able to manage your finances, and the bankers love that, and that makes it easier to get the loan. So that's it.
Love it.
Love it.
So let's talk more about that.
Well, welcome here today at the Acorn Leaf. We have, my name is Lynn Gastineau, and we have with us Lacey Schmidt, who's VP of Operations here at Gastineau Log Homes. But we're even more excited to have a good friend of mine here, Bert Doerhoff, who is a CPA, and he's here to give us some financial advice for planning your log home construction or hybrid home or park model, whatever you're going to do. Bert, I know that you've got a bunch of other letters that are behind your name besides just CPA. What are some of those?
Well, a lot of them are probably not worth repeating, but anyhow, I am a registered investment advisor, a wealth manager, done a lot of things in life, but, those initials don't get you anywhere. It's just, you find out that it's more about helping people. And so that's really my goal in life, is to help people.
Yeah. You've done a good job of it.
Yeah, we've done a lot of that for sure.
Yeah, you've done a lot. So you had a CPA firm in Jefferson City for how many years?
45 years.
45 years.
And we sold the CPA firm and the wealth management firm here about 3 years ago now. Mm-hmm. And I'm still working in it. I guess I just still haven't learned, how to retire. But I enjoy what I do. And so, it's when you sell your business, you sell a part of you. And that's the hardest part of it is it's not your baby anymore. Mm-hmm. And you become a yes sir, no sir, and go from there. But there's a value to that too, to learning from others. And so every experience you can learn something from.
That's right. Well, for the listeners, Bert and I have been in a business group together since about 1997 or 2000 or something like that. When did you join?
At least you were one of the almost founders of the group.
I know.
I can't go back that far, but it's that group has just been awesome to sit around and talk with other business owners and share ideas, and that's an awesome.
Yes,
awesome. Everybody should do that.
One of the highlights of my month. Every month we all get together, and which is one of the reasons I wanted to have you on the podcast, was because I've profited and learned from you over these last years a lot, and I really always have great belief in your thought processes and your knowledge base, and you've helped a lot of business owners around Central Missouri. If you were giving advice to one of your clients that was wanting to build a home in the next few years, what is some of the advice you would give them as far as being to get prepared from a financial standpoint?
Well, I think the first piece of that advice is you need to talk wherever you're going to get your financing. If you got the finances and you're just going to buy cash, that's one thing. But if you're going to have financing, you need to know what their thoughts are. You know, in your case, log homes are unique. They're a great product. But you have to understand what the appraisers are going to think, what the bankers are going to think, and what they're going to want as collateral. I come from a background where you built a home and it was your forever home. And so the people that build every 2 to 3 years, it's more difficult for me to understand. And in your case, probably with the heritage of log homes, it's not a churn and burn type thing. So
Right.
It's really important to sit down and understand how the financial world is going to view what you have, because typically when people build a custom, whether it's a log home or any other type of home, you put things in it that you value that the appraisal world does not value. And so you just have to be prepared to face that, because nobody likes just anymore the plain vanilla home. They all want this nice kitchen or this nice bath or this huge porch or all of these things. And I'm not a builder. My brother was a builder at one time, and I worked in the building industry. So yeah, I've bent some nails in my days and all of that. But the whole thing here is building is, if you're building a forever home, this is not one you're going to sell. And so understanding the financial stress it's going to put on you is a real key point to the front. And so, you know, a few years back we had 3% interest rates, and everybody was just building huge homes and their payments not very big. Now we're looking at, you know, in the 6+ range for a 30-year mortgage. And I just did my good old friend Google search this morning of what was the average payment on a $500,000 home with a 30-year mortgage. And it's about $4,000 a month. You know, that's a big chunk out of most people's budget.
Yeah.
That's a real big chunk out, and that includes taxes and insurance and all of that. But you're
Still
gonna
a lot
have
of money.
those. You're
Right.
going to have them. And so if you have the money to build the house, that's one thing. And you just put whatever you ever wanted in it, and it's your dream. But the biggest thing I find is nobody's ever built the home that they don't want to change. And I am living proof of that. My wife and I have built and remodeled and added on, and we're still in the same home, but it sure does not look the same. And so, you know, just keep that in your perspective as you're going, as you think this is going to be the final. It isn't the final.
Yeah, and kind of to your point about building a custom home or your forever home, you know, we have customers that come to us and they'll 10, 15 years before they're ready to actually build. So they're dreaming at this point. They're thinking, they're planning ahead. And you're right, what they put in that house, the appraisers, you know, that's unique to them, that of course, because it's unique, it's going to have a bit higher price tag, and the appraisers aren't going to see that. Right. But that's exactly why a custom home is a custom home. Right. It's yours. It's what you specifically want, what you've dreamt about. And I think that planning part of it, the 10 to 15 years ahead, is such a huge part of making sure that when that time comes, you're ready, so that you can afford those things.
It is.
That you want.
It's, you know, if you make those decisions all in a month or two, you're going to regret them.
Right.
And so the more you plan ahead, the more you come to this common road and merge together, because, you know, spouses play a big part in this.
Sure.
You know, and if I would have listened to my wife more, I probably would have had less remodels. But you know,
Word to the wise for all the men out there. Listen to what you just said.
There's
To your
this
wife.
saying
Yeah.
called credit and cash and debiting experience.
Yeah.
And, you know, so but no, there's the more you plan and the more you understand. One of the things I see is people get hung up on specific features, or I want this, I don't want this, or whatever. You know, everything you ever bought was new the day you bought it, and when you walked out the door, it was used. And 6 months later, it's not near as special as you thought it was. And so keep it all in perspective. That's the biggest piece of advice I would give to people, is just keep it in perspective. You know, Lou Holtz, is one of my idols. He's a great public speaker. He's just deceased here in the last 6 months, but he's a Hall of Fame college football coach. But he had 3 rules. Always do what's right, always do your very best, and number 3, always think of others. And so I see these people getting in debates, and it's me versus you. It really isn't. It needs to be, I need to understand your viewpoint and how we can get there. And if I can understand your viewpoint, usually I come out better off if I listen to my wife. Because if I tell her my viewpoint, she just tells, no, that's not right. And so
I can tell you've been married a while.
That's right. And still married happily. So that's a win. I've learned to say, okay. But, it's all about understanding others and looking at things from the perspective of others. We've become a very self-centered world, and if I had one piece of advice for people, it'd be always think about it through somebody else's eyes. Sure. And it'll be a lot easier for the whole decision process.
Sure.
Is what I see.
Well, one thing I see people doing is that if their people are building and they are at retirement age, for example, and they may be selling an existing house and getting cash out of that, but a lot of times people are trying to make the decision of whether they want to finance their home or they want to pay with cash that they have on hand. What is your advice, or what things you think you should look at to make that decision, and what are your thoughts of the best way to move forward?
Well, I'm a big believer of, I don't like debt in retirement, so I want to get rid of it, but you have to look at the sources of where you're going to come with the funds. If the funds are in a retirement account, you take that big lump sum out, it drives your tax rate up, you give up a big chunk to retirement. And so I have no problem with people borrowing and taking it out over time to do that. But long term, my goal is to get rid of debt. And if you take today's age where you're paying 6% plus on your money on that, if I take my investments and invest them in the house, I'm saving 6%. I'm making 6% on that money by doing that. And so, because I would be paying somebody else that 6%. And so I'm a big believer in getting rid of debt, but just be very careful in taking it out of retirement accounts in big chunks to pay off. You almost have to look at the financing industry as a bridge to get there. And the tax law is all about jumps of income. And so, you start at one income level and you take another chunk out, and all of a sudden you jump to a higher tax rate. And so try and plan to be able to take those dollars out in the most efficient tax rate you can is what you need to do over time. And planning long term, I just tell everybody every tax law is permanent until the next Congress comes in. So
right, exactly. I was going to say it's always changing too.
You just
always
have
keep
to understand
your toes.
that, and you deal with it, but you plan around it as best you can, and
right.
that's what you got to do.
They think it is something a lot of people forget about until they get to retirement age. They start pulling the money out of their 401ks and they realize they got to pay taxes on it, and they don't really put that into their mindset or their equations whenever they're thinking about how they're going to retire.
It's just shocking the people that will. I had one just the other day. He was in my office, and he had cashed out 3 IRAs. And he said, well, I had these IRAs and miscellaneous ones around, and I just wanted to clean them up. So I just cashed them out. Well, it bumped his tax rate, and it's not necessarily free money. You've spent your whole life saving it, and it's saved you taxes all along. You just have to be very efficient with how you get it out. And the other side of that is, okay, now I'm going to have this home mortgage, and that's going to save me all kinds of taxes. Well, yes and no. The people need to understand that the tax law, the only part of your house you can deduct is, you can take property taxes and interest, but the government gives a married couple a standard deduction of over $30,000. And so until you spend over $30,000 on interest and charity and property taxes, you don't save a dollar. And it takes a pretty sizable home loan to get that 30,000 threshold, and you're a whole lot poorer because you're making all these big payments, and you thought, man, this is going to save me a lot of taxes, but your taxes don't change that much as a result of it. And so I just tell people, don't do it for tax purposes. Do it because this is what you want, what you can afford, and go from there.
Good point.
Very good point.
Another thing that we see people having issues with is if they're self-employed, have their own business, especially as they have LLCs or they have S corps, and as we all know, people that they're doing their taxes, they're trying to keep their income at a minimum for the taxes they pay. Then they turn around and they go to get a mortgage and they wonder why they can't qualify for the mortgage. So what if somebody is self-employed and is looking a couple of years down the road for to build a home, and they're going to need to get a mortgage on that home, what advice would you give to them?
Well, I'm a big believer of, okay, if you make it, there's a cost of living in this great country and you pay some tax on it. But the people that think they're beating the rap by not reporting income or by keeping their income low or whatnot, it always comes back to buy you. Whenever somebody when you want to exit your business and you want to sell it, people buy business based on what it makes, and if it never showed any profit, all you've got's a job and you don't have anything to sell. Same way with if you want to go get financing, if you got a W-2, the government already knew how much you made because the employer reported it to them. If you don't have a W-2, you got this Schedule C or a corporation or whatever, and you've buried every personal expense in there you ever thought of, then don't be surprised because the financial world looks for certain income, and they won't let you spend over a certain percentage of your income on payments. And you say, well, I make all this, and they say, no, you don't. The dollars here say it doesn't. And then they start saying, well, I bought this, I bought that. I just tell people all of that information is available to the government. You think you're beating the rap, you're really just fooling yourself. How many cars you own, what goes through your bank account, what you bought with cash, anything that's got a title is traceable. It's just not worth the hassle, and I look at it this way. My reputation's worth something, particularly when I'm selling services to people, and so if it gets plastered all over the news that I didn't pay my taxes or whatever, that would be disastrous to me. Now, others may have a totally different feeling for it. That's okay. But understand that making money is not a problem. I tell people, I can save you all the taxes in the world, but at the point you owe no tax, you're broke. And so that's not a good place to be. I want to make more money and pay more tax, and have the things I want and help people. And over time, that's worked out for me. But it's really hard to get people past that. Everybody, and it's really interesting. The older generation is very strong about that if I made money, I'm going to pay my tax. The younger generation is, I'm not paying tax on that. And so it's just a thing out there, but it will affect, I kind of got off on a sidetrack here, sorry about that, but it will affect how the financial world looks at you. And so, if you want it to look good, work hard, pay tax, and move on.
What planning steps should somebody take when they are, 1 to 3 or 3 to 5 or 5 to 10 years out from building? What steps do you recommend people take to be ready for it?
Well, the real thing is, they got to determine how much they can afford and whether they can do what they want within that budget. But, you kind of back into things is, okay, I have this dream of this beautiful home that I want, but can I get there? And so, when you look at the financial world, the bankers and the lenders, they want to look at, they'll only let your payment be a certain percentage of your income. So you have to understand that. And how much of a, so if you say, okay, I'm willing to get to that number, and that's in the 33% range, whatever it is here, you know, then okay, if I look at a payment of this, how much house can I afford? And then we start going back and forth in rough terms of, okay, now how am I going to get there? You know, because the average net worth out there is something around $200,000 to $500,000, and even at age 65, the average net worth is like $1.5 million. And so, if I'm going to invest $500,000 in my dream home, I've just invested a third
right.
of my retirement. And so, am I going to be able to live the way I want? And there is, when you know, the dream home is this big vision in everybody's head, and it's a great vision. Being able to make sure it can become reality without financial stress is a big issue. You know, there's no stress in a marriage like financial stress. It's because it doesn't go away. It's not something that ends 6 months down the road. Once you're in the hole, it's hard to get out of that. And so, you know, the more you plan on that, the more you can come away with a positive feeling in the end that we accomplished what we set out to. We may have adjusted our sights, but you really have to get back to what can I afford? And, you know, the other thing that comes back into play on that, if you're 3 years out, you know, the financing world looks at credit scores. And so you got to look at your credit score. And
too many people never look at it. They have no idea what their credit score
is. You know,
is.
you have the option to get your own credit score once a year for free from the credit reporting bureaus. A lot of things in it. But just come back to this payment world again, because the financial world says we won't let your house payment be above this percent, and we won't let all your payments combined be above this percentage of your income. And so the first thing you need to do is get rid of your payments. And because that allows you to have room for a bigger house payment. And the one thing that I see destroying more people's net worth than anything is cars. You know, we all like our cars, you know.
Or trucks.
And yeah, trucks.
Trucks they cost more than cars anymore.
And you know, you talk to a car dealer, and the car dealer says, you know, the hardest thing in the world for them to do is to sell a very plain vehicle. Everybody wants it loaded up and dressed up and all of this stuff. I'm no exception to that. But bottom dollar is, nobody's ever in my life, I've never made money owning a vehicle. And so it is a big detriment to your ability, or it can be a big detriment to your ability to get to this dream home, because it's going to, you know, these car payments are huge. And at the end of 5 years, and, you know, a lot of those loans now go 7 years, end of 7 years, your car's worth nothing. And so you got to, it's a constant struggle. So if I was trying to help people, you know, come into a funnel of how do I get there, and I don't have the cash to do it all, then I would try and look at how do I get rid of payments and adjust my lifestyle to where I have more room for the payment for the thing I really want. And address from there.
You know, it's funny you said that people have these grand visions for what they want their house to be. And one of my favorite things is whenever somebody walks in our models here, if they're at retirement age and this is their dream retirement home that they're talking about, it's so funny because some people want a big house because they want their whole family to come over and they want to have a place for everybody to stay and they want to be the house everybody gathers. And there's other that they want a house that's just big enough for them and not enough room for anybody else. So people can come over for dinner, but they're not staying, you know? So
they're
it's all
eat out
types.
on the deck.
Yeah, it's all types. So grand vision doesn't necessarily even mean big house, right? It can still be a downsized house, but it's all of it has to be taken taken into consideration.
And it does, and it just, to some people, family's not important. To other people, it is. And so everybody has to play that vision in their mind of, what do I want this to look like and feel like when I'm done?
Right.
And then how do I get there?
Right.
And the biggest thing I see people doing is not thinking about that. Everybody wants to ride off into the sunset, retire, be happy forever. I have seen so many of my clients that said, okay, I'm going to go to Texas or Florida for a year. And then they come back and their kids have moved on to something else and they've lost their family ties. And so, really
Life moves on.
Look at what that vision is and what's important to you. If it's family, then design around that and design around where the family is and things like that. And families really get spread out, and it gets tougher all the time.
But I like what you said though about going in and husband and wife as a team, right? Going in together, figuring out what you want, making a plan, and then working towards that plan together, right? Over the course of however many years, and so that when you get there,
and also is checking your credit score, because there's a lot of mistakes on credit scores, and sometimes it takes some time to fix it if you have got mistakes on it, because you have to dispute them, and it could take some time. So don't wait until you're applying for your loan to look at your credit score and see that there's a whole bunch of things on there that are not true. Because you got to get it off.
Perfect example is just look at how many times you've had a credit card shut off because there's been bad charges on it or something. And I haven't looked at my credit score in some time, so I don't know whether that's happened to mine. But it's that's a credit reportable incident somebody's got to do. And so I agree. Looking at your credit report, you just need to plan ahead. The more you think of, okay, this is it. I've got this vision, but it takes finances to get there, and I got to pull that piece together. So many people ignore the financial part, and they have the vision, and they just put so much strain in their life because they have payments they can't afford, and it's just tough.
Yeah. So if this seems like it's people feel like, oh, that's over my head, I can't do this kind of thing, who would you recommend they go to get advice?
Well, I'd start with where they're going to borrow the money first,
From the bank?
Because those guys, they look at credit scores, they look at payments. They're not going to sugarcoat things to you. They're going to say, here's what we can do. Now, there's mortgage brokers out there that can sell ice cubes to Eskimos, and they're going to promise the world for you. But I would start with wherever you're going to get your financing for an education of, okay, look at my credit score. Tell me what I could do to improve this. How can I get there? Investing is a time-sensitive thing, and most people wait too long to start saving, whether it's for this dream home, whether it's for retirement, whatever. Warren Buffett, the power of compounding is so understated, and the example I use for people is, the stock market over time has made an average of about 10%. If you come out of high school and you start saving $2,000 a year for 40 years at 10%, you've put aside $80,000. At the end of 10 years, that's only worth about $30,000. At the end of 40 years, it's worth $1 million. So when you wait to start saving and you buy another toy, you cost yourself the tail end of that $1 million, not the front end of it. And so, to get to reality, a lot of people have to start saving sooner. I just always tell people you can't save too much and you can't save soon enough.
Yeah, that's true. One thing it's people talk right now because that houses are so expensive, because ever since COVID, that the price of houses has gone up a lot. But I tell people, in 1977, whenever I started the company and started building my first home, my interest rate was 18%. And yes, it was a lot cheaper to build, but we thought it was expensive then. I can't remember any time in the 48 years that I've been in business that people haven't thought it was expensive to build. They always think it's expensive. Right. It's a lot of money, no matter what pricing you're in or whatever. So it's just the same thing. So, and we look today at what it cost, what we built for 20 years ago. And though I wish I had known that it was going to go up that much. Well, it's never gone down. No. So whatever you can build today it's going to be worth more later on, and it is always kept up.
It has. The key thing here on your forever home, though, is you can't look at what it's worth because you'll never sell it.
Oh,
It's a part of your, and that's what farmers are the world's worst to this. I tell them you can't count your farm as any part of your retirement because none of them will ever sell an acre. And so, and your forever home is the same way. But it's going to keep getting more expensive. And even after you get done and you got this fixed rate home loan and you got all of that, taxes and insurance still go up. Mm-hmm. Look at insurance in our area right now. We're in the hail and windstorm capital of the world here, mm-hmm. coming up through Missouri, and insurance rates are going up. So costs are continuing. Inflation has been with us as long as I ever remember, and it's just like the power of compounding. It's there. We all make more today than we did 20 years ago. You just got to put it all in perspective, but no pain, no gain, I mm-hmm. guess is what I'm saying. Yeah. You gotta think about it.
Well, you mentioned something about your family legacy. Is there any advice you would give to someone who is building a property that they are going to put in a family trust or something where they want to leave the property to their heirs? Any particular suggestions or advice you would give to them?
We all want to control everything forever, and that's the first thing you got to get past. Okay, is that.
So I can't write into the bylaws that my kids have to live on this property forever and never.
I can't tell you when you're going to die, so that's part of it. But it's extremely important to plan for that. But the more restrictions you put on it, the more inflexibility you have. And things like that, and family dynamics are huge, and they don't always work out, mm-hmm. and so a family trust or revocable trust is a great vehicle to avoid probate, but be careful how many strings you put in it, because those strings, and oftentimes what I see. When it comes down to it, it's not your kids. It's in a lot of cases the spouses of your kids that are bending their ear saying, that's not right. You're entitled to more than this, or you're entitled to less, or that one didn't get treated fair. Whatever. It's if I have a piece of advice to people as far as setting up a legacy and passing it on to where they can enjoy it for years and whatnot, is sit down and talk with them and explain that process and explain that legacy while you're alive. Because as I had a funeral director who told me once, who was a client, he says, when I do something wrong, you bill me. All I'm going to be able to do is kick a little dirt on your grave, And so I try and convince clients, let them kick the dirt on you while you're alive. Find out what's going to be a problem and fix it. And if you can't fix it, you can't. But it's better to know ahead than to spend a lot of time on this grand plan that is going to crumble. And nothing lasts forever. In my parents' case, they left a farm on the Osage River. They wanted us all to enjoy hunting and fishing, but people moved to other areas, and sooner or later, that's probably going to unravel. Right now, everybody enjoys getting together there. So you look at your dream and your legacy, and you need to plan for it, and you need to paint your vision in your kids' eyes so that they see the same vision you do. Right. And that's more important. You can have all the legal documents in the world, but all they do is just help attorneys become wealthy.
Help attorneys build houses.
So they can build a nice house.
Yeah.
So, a handshake and an explanation is more important than the legal documents. There's great legal documents out there, but the first thing somebody's going to say is, how can I get around this? So, you got to bring everybody to a consensus, and then the document puts it together rather than controls it.
Right. That makes sense. I mean, I think that's really, really great advice. I never thought about having a discussion with your family before putting a trust together like that and making sure they understand your vision, just like you do. Well, Bert, thank you for your time today. It's been awesome having you here. I have certainly learned a lot of things I never thought about before. So I'm hoping that everybody listening is the same.
Thanks, Bert. We really appreciate it, and I'll see you next month at our get together.
I just tell people, free advice is worth what you pay for it. So you don't understand that,
No,
Thank
really
you for allowing me to share some time with you.
Yeah. No, that's really, really fantastic. Thank you.